Going live now. We are going live. Welcome to another installment. Happy Friday to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. There's a big number today. It's 50, the big 50. Hello to you, Sue, all the way from down under in Melbourne, Australia. And we're sprinting to the finish line. We're almost done with this year's full of tips. And this is number 50. So we've got today, next week, and the following week to go. And it's exciting. I'm already thinking about every day, Stu and I, we're working on the next version of Get a Clue in 52 for speakers. And so that's going to be ready by the first week of January. So we're going to start it all over again, another 52 tips. By now, you know that the Get a Clue in 52 tips series, the book series, it's all tips and it's 5 categories. Every book has 5 categories. And the one that we're dealing with this year, Get a Clue in 52 for coaches, myself included. The 5 categories started off in the beginning of the year. We had 11 tips on self-promotion. Then we moved on and covered 9 tips on engagement or enrollment, right? Securing clients, getting permission to lead, getting permission to use our coaching acumen. Once we become a coach and tell the world we're a coach, then we need people to coach, right? So we want to get engagement or enrollment. And then once they're engaged or enrolled, then it's motivation plus accountability equals results. So we had 10 tips on how do we motivate people? How do we provide motivation? How do we unlock motivation? How do we increase motivation, right? How do we install motivation? All of those strategies, tactics, and resources. But then we also finished this section on the behavioral intervention, the mindset, because you can get the best strategy, proven strategy in the world. But if people believe something that prevents them from implementing that strategy, we want to be able to clear that up as well. So we've got strategies for behavioral intervention inside of coaching as well. And of course, once we've got engagement or enrollment, and then once we've created motivation, the only thing left to do after that is count and accountability. We covered 10 tips there. And that got us to where we are now, these 12 tips on practice building. This is the final section of the book, and we are in the 10th tip today in this section. But I'm going to quickly today, because I've spent a lot of time reviewing these tips in weeks past. We're going to quickly today review the 9 tips that led us to today's tip, and we'll get into it. So first of all, when we talk about practice building, we want to make sure that it's worth it, right? We know on this side of the desk, a lot of times people out there, they see coaching, right? The social media posts and the LinkedIn posts and the articles and the speaking and all of that stuff. But behind the scenes, building a practice, we got to meet these accountabilities. So is it worth it? Is it worth it to build a practice from an income earning hobby to a practice to a business? All of the responsibilities that you have, all of the ins and outs, which I cover in these 12 tips, you want to make sure it's worth it. So pay the fee of feasibility, because when you try to build an income, you try to build a practice, you try to build a business around coaching, you're not just coaching. There's all these other things you've got to do. And so is it worth it? All right. If it's worth it to run the business, then run the business, run it. Make sure that it operates. Make sure that things in the business are functional and operational so that the business can do what the business is supposed to do, or the practice can do what the practice is supposed to do, which is generate revenue, solve problems in the world, generating revenue, right? Or earn revenue because of the problems that the business solves in the world. All right. So that's high level, right? Management level stuff. Ownership, or then executive C-suite, those 2 accountabilities. Then we get into the org chart a little bit more, into the department on operations. And so the first of 3 accountabilities in operations is, can I see a menu, or product and service development, or research and development? In other words, even if it's a nonprofit business, there's still something that you're selling. There's still something that creates that exchange of value where revenue comes in. So what's on the menu? What creates revenue for the business? That says nothing about profits, by the way. That's just revenue, right? Profits is a whole different conversation. So what's on the menu? And the argument that I've made all year long is that if coaching's the only thing on your menu, you could get it from a skill set to an income earning hobby to a thriving practice, but you're gonna have a hard time growing it to business proportions with only coaching is on your menu. So what else can we put onto the menu? Are we renovating? Are we reimagining? Are we trial and error? Are we putting specialist discounts for limited time only? New product offerings. How are we reimagining what it is that we offer? For me, it's very simple. I put coaching on the menu first, and then I realized, I need training on the menu. I need consulting on the menu. And then years later, I need books on my menu. I need keynote speeches on my menu, right? All the other things that people can hire me for now. And now when you look at all those other things, by the way, I wouldn't call it just a coaching business if I got all that stuff on my menu. I'd call it a professional growth business or a management consulting firm, or right. So I get very jovial about this teasing I'm doing to like an imaginary person, I think, that's, trying to say, oh, my coaching business. Well, I don't know where you are, imaginary person, but are you really calling this thing a business? There's some things to consider before we call it a business. All right. So can I see a menu? Then we leave the operations, we go over to marketing. There's two major accountabilities in marketing, which is bring information in and send information out. Info in, info out, right? Now there's a million things that you can do in marketing, but to me, just to understand the accountabilities, they all fall into two categories. Everything about marketing is two categories. What information am I bringing in? What market research am I doing? And then how smart am I about what messages I'm putting out? All right. And there's a lot of things that go into that, but categorically, it's just two accountabilities. And so the progression is they're anonymous. We don't know them at all. Then they become a lead when we have a name, phone number, or email. They become a prospect when we put information out there to them that gets them aware of and interested in what we're doing, right? But they don't become a client unless we've met the accountability in the sales department, which is convert. So the sixth tip in this section, the sixth accountability, there's only one accountability in the entirety of the sales department. That's convert prospects to customers, convert prospects to clients. But then we go back into operations once they've bought from us, once they've enrolled with us, right now we need to serve them. So the seventh tip in this section was the R&R game, and it's about customer service. So R&R isn't rest and relaxation. R&R is repeat and referral. Everything that we do when it comes to serving the client should be geared towards creating repeat business and referred business. Okay. And so that's why we're playing the R&R game, and we talk about customer service and lasting impression, and guilt is the goal, right? I want people to feel guilty. They didn't pay enough for this, what they're getting, all the value that they're getting. So we had some fun with that as well. And then I really enjoyed this tip more than I thought I would when I started writing it. But after I got into it and I wrote it and read it, it was even more fun to read. But I was reminiscing about it's like, it wasn't fun at the time, like to be stuck in traffic, looking at the clock, wondering if I'm going to get to my destination in time for the conference call that I got to call into, and then pulling off on the side of the road to stabilize. Like, it wasn't fun at the time. But boy, do I enjoy looking back on those moments, those, cutting my teeth and earning my stripes and paying my dues. And fondly, I look back on those struggles that are super, super, super real. And, whether it's, doing business out of Starbucks or a parking lot for a Starbucks or a business club or a hotel conference room, or all the different places where I've conducted business, where I've done Zooms or I've spoken, or lake houses and retreats and all kinds of different surroundings I've been in while conducting business. But that's the accountability, is facilities management, understanding where business takes place and making sure that there's an experience for yourself, for the vendors, for the customers, for the prospects, for the independent contractors. Where do people go to do business with you, and what's the experience they have once they're there? And how much time do you have to know and set and design those surroundings in a way that creates that experience that you want people to have when they interact with you in your business? Okay. So then last week, we got into the other department. At least now we're out of operations, we're out of sales, we're out of marketing, and now we're into the finance department. And we've got 4 accountabilities here. And I can rework this. I reimagined this earlier in the year to include a 13th and a 14th accountability and rework. But just going on the way I've always organized this, the way I've always taught this and trained on this, we're going to stick with these 12. That's what's in the book. But in future offerings, I may expand to 13 or 14 because there's HR and legal. But as a coach, I don't need to hire an HR person. I don't need to have an attorney on staff. I don't need a department inside my business. If I ever need an attorney, I'll just go call one, and it'll be transactional. It's not like staff in my org chart, if that makes sense to you. And I do all my own HR, human resources. That's one of the reasons I don't call it a business, because I don't have employees, right? Because then I would need, get to a certain point, and then you need to think about HR and compliance and labor law and all these other factors that I'm trying to be super honest about. But we got into the first of these 4 accountabilities, which was strategic payables. And what's interesting about that is the goals of strategic payables. The tip said, basically speaking, we want to maximize, increase cash flow, and minimize, reduce, or eliminate wasted expenditures, unnecessary expenses. So we want to reduce those, and we want to increase the amount of cash that we have on time and the flow of it all. So our business isn't stressed. We're always in a position to handle any unexpected things that come up, or make investments in ourselves if opportunities come up. So isn't it funny, Sue, that the same 2 goals are there for strategic, I before E, receivables, So it's the same goals. When we want to get strategic about today's tips, strategic receivables is same thing. We want to maximize cash flow, and we want to reduce unnecessary expenses, and a lot of times time and interest. Follow up, track down. There's all the. I can't wait to see what I put in the tip. Before I get into the reading word for word, Sue, let me introduce you. Welcome you to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. Do you have any comments to get us started? Any questions or anything about, I did a little bit more of a brief review of the previous tips. There's 9 of them to cover before today's 10th tip of the section. We got 2 more to close out the year. But what say you, if anything, before I read word for word today?
Yeah, I think, thank you. And it's good to be here. But I think finances is an area of practice business. It almost doesn't matter where people tend to shy away from. They go, "Oh, I don't like it."
Which is code for I'm irresponsible at it, or I don't want to be exposed. I want to be vulnerable. It hurts too much, or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah, but taking the time to put a little bit of learning into the basics can make a world of difference. So these are really good tips.
Yeah, and again, with all of these tips, we're not covering the totality of it. It's just really just like kind of giving us something to think about, and we got to do our own work and go, deeper diving. I like to say cluba diving on this further, but we want the tip to stand alone as enough here that I've written for it to be valuable in and of its own, but the real value is in the follow-up. And if we do actually make plans in our practices to make appointments with ourselves, to put the thought into being strategic about these accountabilities. So thank you for that. Here we go. And without screen sharing, I'll just show that I reproduced the little org chart, stick figure version of an org chart in front of every single one of these tips, so that the reader of the book can follow along and see which tip I'm talking about and where on an org chart it would go, etc. So hopefully that's been helpful. All right, here we go. The page 203, word for word, tip number 50 overall. I feel like this is like, the golden tip, right? The golden, number 50 is a big number, right? Okay, here we go. The 10th accountability on org chart 101 is accounts receivable. And tip number 50 is to be strategic about it if you can. Larger companies mature to create positions like APAR clerk. Yeah, one person who handles both accountabilities of paying bills and collecting revenues. And that's all they do. Ready? Because here we go again. I'm laughing at myself now. I promise to be jovial in these. All right, here we go again. Ready? If I asked you if you're an accounts receivable clerk, you'd say no. Damn it. Remember last week? No, damn it. I'm a coach. This is so funny. If I asked you if you're an accounts receivable clerk, you'd say no. If I was really being a smart ass, I might ask, "Oh, do you do accounts payable too?" And then duck. How do you do accounts payable too? Like the smart ass, like, are you an accounts receivable clerk? No. Oh, do you do accounts payable too? APAR, both, or just one? And then I would duck and get out of the way of the slap. This was so fun. No, I get it. You're a coach, damn it. Wink, smirk, duck again. I get it. But if I asked who collects, cashes, or deposits the checks made out to your coaching business, or do they make it out to you personally? Who collects credit card information and processes electronic payments? What merchant accounts it should say do, I think. Do you use in your coaching business? Do you use in your coaching business, and who sets up and monitors those to make sure they are functional? What happens in your coaching business when a client is late in paying or has a declined card error? If you have Stripe, Venmo, PayPal, or Square for your coaching business, who is the technician that creates products, invoices, and or payment links for them inside the software? Who shops for the lowest processing fees among payment processing vendors? Who works with marketing on technical integrations of payment systems with marketing systems, websites, or funnels? Who runs cash flow reports so decision makers in other departments of your business know what they are working with, and if how to approve spending or expense requests? If you said I do, me too. Okay, my wife helps sometimes. Let's be honest about it. That's in the book, right? Word for word. Again, better yet if you have a personal or executive assistant who does it for you. Maybe better yet if your spouse runs your bank account, books, bills, etc. I don't know. What I do know is that I've never taken a class or had any formal training in accounts receivable. I've never held any job or contract whose duties were collections in any form, yet I've always done and still do nearly 100% of this job in my practice. I'm betting burritos that most coaches are in the same or similar boat. Maybe once I grow large enough to justify the expense of hiring someone to do this, I might be tempted to call my coaching practice a coaching business. Once I have written policies and procedures, checks and balances, safeguards and standards, strategies, tactics, resources, and systems to maximize the cash flow and minimize the expenses associated with collecting revenue, I might be tempted to call it a business. And cue the music. 3 more accountabilities on the chart. 3 more accountabilities. I don't describe my own business as a coaching business. I call it a coaching practice, partly because I still do 100% of my own accounts receivable. And if my work in this accountability was being graded like a test, even though I'm quite sure I'm earning a B or better compared to other coaches, I'm more certainly earning a C or worse compared to most other businesses. I'm going to read that again. Did you get that, Sue? Right? So here we go. I don't describe my own business as a coaching business. I call it a coaching practice, partly because I still do 100% of my own accounts receivable. And if my work in this accountability was being graded like a test, even though I'm quite sure that I'm earning a B or better compared to other coaches, I'm more certain that I am earning a C or worse compared to other businesses in this area of accounts receivable. So when it comes to this accountability, the closest I will get to calling what I have a business is when I use the words expensive before business, because collecting revenue costs money, either in the billable hours not available for coaching when we are doing this work, or in processing fees from vendors, etc. It is expensive to collect money from people. Okay. To the music. You nail one down, pass it around. Okay. If you are not yet convinced from this tip that conducting and managing the collections of revenue is both expensive in fees, time-consuming, billable hours lost to it, and challenging, requires strategy to maximize cash flow, well, the next 2 tips reveal several more reasons why coaches struggle to build what I would personally feel comfortable calling a coaching business. 10 down. Ready? 10 down. Here we go. I got to take a deep breath. 10 down. 1, is it worth it? 2, does it run? 3, what does it sell? 4, what must we know about the marketplace? 5, what does and how does the marketplace know about us? 6, how do we convert prospects to clients? 7, how and how well do we get repeat and referral clients? 8, where does all this take place? And what do what do all of us, the prospects, the clients, the vendors, experience when doing business there? 9, how are we increasing liquidity and reducing waste when we pay for the things we need? Has everyone, and then 10, what we covered today, has everyone paid us what they owe us in ways that maximize cash flow while reducing the labor hours required to get paid? And resume the music. 2 more accountabilities on the chart. 2 more accountabilities. We'll do it again next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific. And then there'll be 1 more accountability on the wall. All right. So we got 2 more to go, and it's going to be fun. And there's some symmetry in the final 2 tips, which illuminate a couple more reasons why I personally am very careful to not call my coaching business a coaching business. I call it a practice. And I have to be honest about all of the needs of a business that I'm not meeting at a high level because it's just me. So there you have it. That's tip number 50 as I adjust my lighting. What comments, what questions do you have? What do you have to feedback on here, Sue?
Something that comes to mind for me about this is tying it back to one of the very first tips that we talked about when it comes to engagement and enrollment of your clients, and the way that when you're going through that process, the way that you set up your clients to pay.
Yes.
Is really key. The two have a very strong relationship, because the more, when you get that right, when you think about are you going to get them to pay up front? It saves you that energy of chasing money. And so there's a very strong relationship between those two.
Yeah, I learned. I want. That's why I say get a clue in 52 for coaches, myself included, because as I wrote the book, to help aspiring and emerging coaches and make a contribution to the profession, I realized that I'm still struggling with all of this stuff. I remembered fondly, that it wasn't fun going through it at the time. But when you look back, you're like, all right, yeah, that's part of the building blocks of where you're at right now. But one of them was I started off and I would enroll people in coaching on monthly. My whole thought was, monthly revenue. So I remember I would say, all right, I remember way back in the day, like this isn't how inflation has happened over the years. I'd mainly offer people, all right, $500 a month and talk to me once a week for $500 a month. I thought this is awesome. $125 an hour, $500 a month. Get me a couple of those, a couple of those, and I'm up to a couple grand a month, and I'm off and running, right? Until they canceled or they got sick, and then they didn't do their 4 sessions that month. And now the first of the month is coming, and I want to build a 500, but they've only done 3 sessions and not 4. And now I'm wondering, well, is it okay to build a card? Or I hadn't figured out auto pay or recurring, or I call them, hey, it's okay to build a card, or hey, I went to run your card and it didn't work. Do you have a new card? And all of the rigmarole around that, I finally figured out, right? Which seems so simple. Like, why didn't I figure this out sooner? But bottom line is I decided that it was worth money to incentivize people to pay in full up front. Like, hey, instead 12 sessions instead of 4 a month for 3 months, and I got to bill you 3 different times plus an intake fee and what have you. Just, hey, I'll give you 10% off if you pay for all 12 up front. Then you can use them whenever you want. I'm not chasing you down to stay on a weekly schedule. You've got a bank of 12 sessions. You can use 2 in a day if you want, or you can use 6 this month, and however you want to do it. But if you're on a monthly plan, now you need to be held accountable to actually making sure you do not move, reschedule, cancel any of your sessions, because if I set to recurring billing, right? And you got sick, or you went to go visit your dad, or you were on vacation or whatever, but I'm still going to bill on the monthly basis to automate that if I can. So it just became like the most obvious no-brainer thing in the world for me to give 10% to anybody that pays in full up front, right? And that's the other thing too, is like financing. If somebody wants to go on a payment plan, and now you've got to stay with them, there's labor hours associated with those collections. And so, if you're going to finance somebody else's investment, right, then you want to, and then the other thing too, this isn't what you were bringing up, Sue, you want to get compensated for the financing of the investment. It's just like a bank, how it works, right? But other times I've been in other situations where I've let people go on a plan. I've given them everything they paid for, let them go on a plan. And now, 2 months into a 1-year plan, they cancel. They say, oh, I need to cancel. I need to delay, or I need to postpone, but I've already given them everything that they've paid for, and they're paying for it over 12 months. Now they've only made 2 months worth of payments, but I've given them 100% of the product. Right. So that's rare, but that's happened to me. And I want to proudly say that as of right now, like in my 17th year of coaching for money, I think in total, out of 17 years, I think I'm only owed $3,600. I think, and 3,000 of that is one client who made a $2,000 payment on October 1st, and I'm hoping that they chip away at the 1,000. Right. So if that client keeps their word and they come back with 1,000 a month for finish out what they owe, then I'm only owed $500-$600 total in 17 years, because I am strategic about, first of all, not coaching unless I've received payment. Right. And, with this one particular person I've mentioned, I was like, hey, I'll work with you. I trust you. You're good for it. You've made payments in the past. You're going through something. As your coach, I can't give up on you. I got to support you through what you're going through right now. And I'm in it with you. And, came out the other end of it, was able to make a $2,000 payment, stabilize, will pay the other $3,000. So at one point he was $5,000 in the hole. I was like, oh my God, this never happened to me. Right. But it was just one client, and he's getting back on track. But yeah, it's just, I'm proud that I set the boundary of, no, I'm not going to deliver service unless I receive payment. You have to retain me, and right. And then being incentivizing for people to pay in full up front. And but I go into, I can screen share right now and show you my payment apps, right? I go into Square and I create the product, and I create the item, and I write the description, and I upload the picture, and I test the link, and then I send the link out, and people click the link, and they go and pay. But I just got another $5,000 retainer on Monday. It was Monday of this week, but I already have the link set up. It was very cool. You know, the client is a law firm, and I'm coaching him, one of the attorneys, and the paralegal, and he retained me for 25 sessions, right? A VIP rate. You pay for 25 sessions up front, you get the rate down, right? So that's incentivized, right? The more you commit to and the more you pay up front, the better the deal is, right? Why?
Yeah.
Right? Because now I can do forecasting and projections and set my budgets and understand what's coming in and anticipate on and on. So there's always reasons to incentivize discounts. One, the bulk purchasing, and then two, paying full up front, right? We're always willing to give discounts for those things, right? And then it was just wonderful. Like, I was at the client last week, and I did the 3 sessions with him, the other attorney, and the paralegal. They invited me to happy hour afterwards. We're enjoying happy hour, and he unsolicited, he says, "Hey, I think we need to renew." I'm like, "Yeah, you've got about 8 sessions left on the retainer, 8 of 25. We're getting there." And he wants to get some money off the books for 2023. So he's like, "Hey, how about we do another retainer and we add?" So now he's got the 25 plus the 8, 33 sessions to start 2024. But it was awesome. He already had the link. He just clicks the link and pay. I just wake up and there's the money in the account. It was wonderful. But you gotta put the time in, and you gotta be strategic about these systems. So what else? What other comments, questions? I like what you brought up. Like you think, because intuitively, and I'll stop talking here for a second, Sue. Intuitively, when we think about accounts receivable, we think about that taking place in some other context, in some other stage of the interaction. But you're reminding us that no, we're thinking about receivables in the complimentary coaching session process while we're doing sales. Our job is to convert, but there's a direct, how would you like to pay? By credit card, by check, electronic, right? And so, I definitely engineered my enrollment conversation to incentivize that pay in full up front. But the way I explain it, I do 2.5 hours of free coaching first. Do you want me to be your coach? Yes. Now I have your attention when I explain the dynamics of the investment and why what the incentive is for you to pay in full up front and to get 24 instead of 12 sessions, or 12 instead of 6 sessions, or right. As VPL does, the VIP retainer, VPL retains me for 50 sessions at a time. Right. Yeah. So that's a 5-figure retainer, which is it's wonderful when he uses those up across his businesses and it's time to renew. It's fantastic. So what say you, Sue, while I take another sip of coffee? I love that you brought up that connection to the enrollment process.
Yeah. But even building on that then too, as you were talking, what it reminds me to, and what I have seen so often in big business, is these areas of marketing, finance tend to get siloed, and it's the importance of integrating them. And so the more integration,
I love that word, keep going,
the more effort and time and thought that anyone puts into thinking about their systems from the perspective of the way they do things, as well as the functionality and the sort of the IT aspect of it, the more that their marketing, finance, sales integrates, and the easier it is.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of the differences between like Mac and a PC. Right, a PC is all these components from all these different people assembled, and hopefully it runs. But if any one component, whereas Mac, it's all custom built for the, everything inside of a Mac is Apple. You know what I'm saying? So all of the different components and parts that make the computer run, they already familiar with each other. Whereas for years, PCs were assembled with all these different parts coming from different places, and that you get blue screen, right? When the things would freeze up, that was because of the integrations of all these various components had some hiccups or some bumps that would cause problems or resets or reboots that Mac products didn't have, right? So it's no different from our business, right? If we can, if all of the departments understand what everybody's doing, and then again, that goes up to me, that's this person's job. Whoever's in this accountability, the chief operating officer, needs to have their finger on the pulse of all of the departments and make sure that each department knows what they need to know about the other departments. And so puppeteering it and making sure those integrations and that operational fluidity is intact. That's, that responsibility for integrations, I think, are up here at that, the position that reports to the shareholders, but all of the departments are reporting to them. That's the person that needs to know what's going on across the board. Yeah. What else? Any of the comments or questions or insights as
probably the main things this morning.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's funny too, because I thought, well, yeah, how much can I stretch this? If we've already talked about accounts pay, like, how is it, I debated over, well, are these really two separate tips, or should I just do an APAR tip? And then I realized, well, no, there's enough differentiation to consider in the accountabilities of these two things. They both want to do the same thing: increase cash flow, minimize unnecessary expenses. Right. But they're distinct enough to stand alone. So I'm pleased that we got through those two tips, and there's two more to go. Let's go ahead. It's 9:30 right now. I mean, we don't have to stay on for a full 45 minutes. I remember a couple weeks ago we were on for an hour and 15 minutes. That tip was so juicy. But let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get last call for comments, questions, anything else that you want to add to today's stream. And then otherwise we'll call it quits. We'll look forward till next week. The holidays are upon us. People got a lot of busyness this month, getting ready for the holidays and all of that. And I'm no different. I've got a lot of things I need to take care of. So last call: comments, questions, jokes, riddles, expressions of gratitude, haikus, limericks, anything that you've got before we wrap up today. It's last call.
Just to say that I agree with you. I think there is enough differentiation between accounts payable and accounts receivable. They have a slightly different focus, but for them to stand alone. But aside from that, nothing else really to add.
Okay, very good. I'll be touching base with you over the weekend, Sue, on our other project. I'm plugging in advance. We're just a couple weeks away from releasing the next installment of Get a Klu in 52 for speakers with co-author Sue, and it's going to be a different approach. It's still tips, still categories, but it's going to be a slightly different approach. We want to invite the reader into the loveliness of the mentor-mentee relationship, and of all of the work that Sue and I have done together over the years. We want you to be able to eavesdrop into our conversational flow that brought out these tips that we've captured in book form and we're getting ready to present to you. So that's all I'll say.
Almost like years brought into a little snapshot.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see. So is this. This is like literally my coaching, like a huge percentage of my coaching and leadership training is here in book form, right? So you can read about it, but that doesn't get you trained, right? You need exercises, activities, role plays, and competency assessment. But yeah, there's an enormity in this book. It's like 52 tips, but when we look back on it, we think, wow, we've really covered quite a bit here this year, and it's fun. It's fun to feel that sense of pride and accomplishment to finish another year. But it's not a sadness, because we can always see what's going to go. We already know what's going to be happening next year. So it's cool. I'm 2 weeks away from finishing my 4th consecutive year of doing at least one live stream every week. I mean, do you know anybody that's done anything once a week for 4 years? Don't answer that. All right. All right. All jokes aside, happy Friday, Sue. I love you very much. And for those of you out there that dropped in today at all or watch the recording, thank you for taking time to see what value may be residing in these streams that we're doing every week. And we're going to do it again next week. We're going to do it again in 2 weeks. We're going to do it again every week in 2024. Sue, I can't wait for you to tell me what day of the week and what time of the day we're going to do it, because you have first right of refusal. No more waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning anymore for you. Like, you've been amazing. But how about we find a more convenient time for you, and I'll make sure that I'm available for that. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I've loved collaborating with you on this, and we've got the juiciest parts of the collaboration in front of us as we sprint to the finish line to get it all done. But I'm confident.
A lot of fun.
It's going to accelerate. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to have a lot of stuff to do, and we're chipping away at it. It's coming together nicely. So there you go. Thank you for everything, Sue, all your support, and can't wait for you to be the co-host. We've got 2 more tips to go.
Pleasure. Look forward.
All right.
Looking
All right,
forward to it.
All right. Well, that
All
does
right.
it. That does it for another installment of Get a Clue in 52 for coaches, myself included. And we'll see everybody next week.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Go Aztecs.